From North America's dense forest to the Himalayas' isolated highlands, stories of strange creatures that lurk just beyond the veil of our understanding have been passed down through generations. These cryptids, based between the realms of myth and reality, are a tapestry woven from the fears, folklore, and whispers of our cultures worldwide. Are these beasts mere legends born of superstition, or do they hide in the dark corners of our world, waiting for the moment they are finally revealed? The hunt for answers begins. But remember, some things are better left undisturbed. Welcome to Myth and Lores, a journey into the dark and divine. Without further ado, let's jump into another lore. The New Jersey Devil is a legendary creature rooted in the folklore of the Pine Barrens, a vast forested area that spans over 1 million acres in southern New Jersey. Its origin story, depiction, and cultural significance have evolved over the centuries, making it one of the most famous cryptids in American folklore. Here's a detailed look at its lore, history, and common depictions. Origins of the legend. The most popular origin story of the New Jersey Devil is tied to a woman named Mother Leeds, a figure from the early 18th century. According to this tale, in 1735, Mother Leeds, a woman from the Pine Barrens, was reportedly pregnant with her 13th child. Desperate and frustrated by the burden of another pregnancy, she cursed her unborn child, saying something along the lines of, "Let this one be the devil." When the child was born, it allegedly transformed into a horrific creature with wings, hooves, and a monstrous appearance. It immediately flew out of the house and into the Pine Barrens, where it is said to have roamed ever since. Over time, the tale evolved, with various versions of the story circulating throughout New Jersey. Some accounts suggest that Mother Leeds had been a witch or had made a pact with the devil, while others claim that the child's birth was a result of a supernatural curse. The Leeds family lived in the Pine Barrens and was often connected to these legends. In some variations of the tale, the creature was described as the 13th child of the Leeds family, and this child was cursed or transformed into a monstrous entity. The association with the number 13, widely regarded as unlucky, is often emphasized in telling this legend, adding an extra layer of mystique. The New Jersey Devil is typically described as a terrifying, grotesque creature with the following features. The creature's head is often depicted as a horse-like or goat-like face, sometimes with glowing eyes or a sharp, devilish grin. Its body is usually described as kangaroo-like or bat-like with a thin, elongated frame. Some versions depict it with the body of a large winged humanoid, while others emphasize a more beastly appearance. The creature is said to have bat wings that allows it to fly at high speeds. Its legs are often described as horse-like or goat-like, ending in hooves, adding to its demonic aesthetic. The New Jersey Devil is sometimes said to have a long, spiny, or serpentine tail. The New Jersey Devil is often depicted as a predatory creature capable of terrorizing humans, livestock, and other animals. Some stories say it will raid farms, killing animals or causing general chaos. Other versions described it as elusive, only appearing at night or under certain conditions, such as during storms. While the origin of the New Jersey Devil is traditionally traced back to the 18th century, sightings and reports of strange occurrences in the Pine Barrens continue for many years, keeping the legend alive. One of the earliest recorded sightings of the New Jersey Devil occurred in 1909 when a wave of reports came from various parts of southern New Jersey. During this time, Newspapers across the region were filled with stories of mysterious animal attacks, strange footprints, and sightings of a bizarre creature. Witnesses described hearing blood-curdling screeches, seeing the creature's glowing eyes, and discovering tracks that seemed to belong to a non-existent animal. In January 1909, a widespread panic occurred, with reports of the creature being seen by thousands of people, from railroad workers to hunters. Newspapers ran sensational stories about the beast, fueling the fire and heightening public fear. In some reports, the creature was said to be seen flying through the sky, while others described it as lurking on the ground, prowling in the woods. Over time, the New Jersey Devil became a symbol of local folklore in New Jersey, especially within the Pine Barrens. It was a creature that was both feared and revered, and it played a role in the regional identity. The Devil's legend was often shared as a cautionary tale, warning people to stay away from the eerie and dangerous parts of Pine Barrens. The Devil's legend was often shared as a cautionary tale, warning people to stay away from the eerie and dangerous parts of the Pine Barrens. Some versions of the legend suggest that the Lee's family was cursed, with many family members allegedly experiencing mysterious and tragic events throughout their lives. In some stories, it is suggested that the devil's presence was not confined to one generation of the Lee's family, but passed down through successive generations. In the modern era, the New Jersey Devil has taken on a life of its own, becoming a symbol of the mysterious and unexplained. It has been depicted in various ways in popular culture, from comic books and TV shows to video games and movies. Despite the variations in its portrayal, it generally retains its core attributes of being a winged nocturnal and terrifying entity. The New Jersey Devil has appeared in several TV shows, including X-Files, Supernatural, and The Ghost Whisperer. It also appeared in comic books and other media, where it's often depicted as a menacing force of nature. The Jersey Devil is one of the most famous cryptids, creatures whose existence is unproven by science. Cryptozoologists have long been fascinated by the creature, and some believe that it may be an undiscovered species of bat, bird, or large predator. However, skeptics dismiss the creature as a product of folklore, hoaxes, and misidentifications of known animals. The Pine Barrens remains a place where many claim to have had strange encounters or supernatural experiences. The eerie, isolated terrain of the Barrens, combined with the legend of the Jersey Devil, make it a popular spot for ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts. Today, the New Jersey Devil remains an important part of New Jersey cultural identity. The creature has become a local mascot of sorts, featured in everything from sports teams' logos to tourist attractions. The New Jersey Devils, the NHL hockey team, has even adopted the creature as its official mascot, further cementing its place in regional lore. The forested area of the Pine Barrens continues to be associated with the legend. Visitors can find signs and landmarks dedicated to the Jersey Devil, and the region remains a hub for paranormal tourism. While sightings of the Jersey Devil have decreased significantly in modern times, the occasional report still surfaces, with individuals claiming to have seen a strange, winged creature or heard unearthly noises in the woods. In conclusion, the New Jersey Devil is a classic example of American folklore, blending elements of superstition, regional history, and mystery into a compelling narrative. Whether as a fearsome creature, a symbol of local pride, or a subject of modern-day cryptozoological interest, the Jersey Devil continues to captivate people's imagination across New Jersey and beyond. The legend may have started as a single tale of a cursed child, but over time, it has become an enduring part of American myth and popular culture. In a horror context, the New Jersey Devil is a particularly rich and menacing figure, embodying the dark, primal forces of nature and the unknown. Drawing from its folklore origins, The creature's horror potential lies in its combination of supernatural powers, mysterious origins, and relentless predation. The eerie setting of the Pine Barrens, a vast, isolated and wild forest in southern New Jersey, provides a perfect backdrop for chilling encounters with the creature. In a horror story, the New Jersey Devil can be envisioned as a predatory supernatural entity that stalks the Pine Barrens or even extends into suburban New Jersey, targeting the weak, the lost, or the vulnerable. Its malevolence is not limited to physical harm. Its presence alone could cause psychological terror. Isolation and the fear of the unknown. The vast desolate Pine Barrens, with its endless forest and desolate swamps, offers a perfect setting for horror. In a more urbanized environment, the New Jersey Devil can be seen as an invading force, making its way into rural communities, evoking a fear of being hunted by a creature with no mercy. Given its ambiguous origins, whether it's the result of a curse, a twisted supernatural entity, or an ancient creature of myth, the Jersey Devil could function as a kind of eldritch horror where its true form and intentions remain a mystery. It might twist reality around it, causing hallucinations and illusions and altering the environment to make its victims more vulnerable. The New Jersey Devil could be tied directly to revenge or a curse. For example, the legend of Mother Leeds could be expanded into a dark tale of vengeance and familiar doom, where the devil is a manifestation of an ancient wrong that refuses to die. A cursed lineage could be the key to the horror. Those who carry the blood of the Leeds family might be hunted by the Jersey Devil, a vengeful spirit looking to continue its bloodlust, or perhaps its physical manifestation of the curse that haunts the family. In such a scenario, every descendant of the Leeds family may be doomed to encounter the Jersey Devil at some point in their lives, perhaps in the form of a ritualistic terror, being stalked, hunted, or haunted by the creature. The curse can play on the theme of family trauma and the inescapability of ancestral sins. The New Jersey Devil offers an endless well of terrifying possibilities. Whether it is a supernatural beast that preys on the weak, a vengeful force tied to a family curse, or a shape-shifting entity that manipulates reality itself, the Jersey Devil embodies the fear of the unknown, the primal, and the otherworldly. Its deeply rooted place in regional folklore and nightmarish qualities make it an ideal figure for stories of creeping terror and dread. The Chupacabra, a creature deeply woven into modern folklore, has a sinister and mysterious legacy that stretches far beyond the typical cryptid story. Its name, meaning goatsucker in Spanish, hints at its terrifying method of attack. The creature is said to drain the blood of livestock, particularly goats, and occasionally other animals like chickens, dogs, and even larger mammals. The legend of the Chupacabra first emerged in Puerto Rico in 1995. The earliest reports described it as a reptilian creature with spines along its back, alien-like eyes, and an insatiable thirst for blood. The first notable sightings were of livestock being found with 2 or 3 punctured wounds on their necks, drained of blood. These incidents were often attributed to some creature. Still, the Chupacabra myth quickly expanded beyond Puerto Rico with reports in Latin America, the United States, and even parts of Asia. Over time, the appearance of the Chupacabra has evolved in popular imagination. Early accounts depicted it as reptilian, scaly skin, sharp spines, and glowing eyes, but many subsequent reports described a more canine-like creature. These modern variations were often hairless with gaunt, skeletal bodies, sharp teeth, and a hunched posture. This shift in appearance might result from the misidentification of known animals, such as coyotes, suffering from mange, which explains some of the hairless sightings. Some reports describe a creature with alien-like characteristics, such as large black eyes and an aura of malevolent energy. These sightings, often in rural or isolated areas, lend themselves to the more supernatural interpretations of the chupacabra, positioning it as a demonic or otherworldly force rather than just a cryptid. The chupacabra's mythos is rooted not just in its appearance, but also in the fear and uncertainty it creates. Several dark theories regarding its origins exist, often straddling the line between myth and science fiction. One more popular but chilling theory is that the chupacabra results from secret government experiments. Some speculate that the creature could be a bioengineered organism created either by the military or other shadowy organizations, possibly as part of a failed biological warfare program. This would tie into broader fears of government outreach, particularly around the concept of black projects, classified experimental endeavors that have gone awry. Another theory suggests that the chupacabra is extraterrestrial. Some describe it as a creature that arrived on Earth via a UFO, perhaps even having a connection with other alien phenomena like crop circles or mysterious cattle mutilations. This theory draws from the same well of fear and fascination that fuels the stories of Roswell and other UFO-related conspiracies. In a more supernatural vein, the chupacabra is sometimes considered a demonic entity, a manifestation of evil, or a curse placed upon certain areas. This darker law often ties the chupacabra to rituals and ancient practices, suggesting it might result from some malevolent force summoned through a cult or black magic ceremonies. In these stories, the creature is said to have a ravenous, insatiable hunger for blood, driven by a need to punish those who have disturbed sacred grounds. The chupacabra's blood-sucking nature may also tie into ancient myths of vampires and other creatures that drain life energy. Some claim it is an incarnation of the night-sucking spirits that have appeared in cultures worldwide. These include the aswang in the Philippines, the layak in Bali, and other bloodthirsty creatures that appear in local folklore and legends. The chupacabra is a modern manifestation of much older fears. The chupacabra holds a special place in the collective psyche of many communities, particularly in Latin America, where fear of the creature can sometimes paralyze entire regions. In some rural areas, people report seeing livestock mysteriously slaughtered with no clear explanation, leading to widespread panic. The emotional toll this takes on the affected communities is immense, as people grow afraid to let their animals outside at night or even to venture into specific areas. The chupacabra becomes a symbol of the unknown, the unexplainable, something that cannot be controlled or understood, which is often more terrifying than any tangible enemy. As the legend grew, the chupacabra began appearing in various media forms, from movies to television series, often with a more exaggerated and fantastical twist. It has appeared in science fiction TV shows like X-Files, video games, and horror films. These portrayals often emphasize the creature's sinister, malevolent nature, feeding into the aura of mystery and terror surrounding it. However, despite its place in pop culture, the chupacabra has never been conclusively proven to exist. Scientific investigations of alleged chupacabra attacks typically reveal mundane explanations. Predators such as dogs, coyotes, or other scavengers, often with mange, are responsible for the livestock deaths. The puncture wounds found on the animals are usually attributed to the feeding habits of these animals, though no definitive proof has ever emerged to disprove the creature's existence entirely. The chupacabra remains one of the most chilling figures in modern cryptozoology, blending elements of ancient myth, contemporary fears, or a thirst for the unknown. Its story is as much about the things that bump in the night as it is about how fear can shape folklore. Whether you view it as a real creature, a product of mass hysteria, or a profoundly symbolic representation of fear and the unknowable, the chupacabra's dark lore has captured the imagination and hearts of millions and will likely continue to do so for generations to come. The Wendigo is one of the most haunting and terrifying figures in North American folklore, particularly among indigenous peoples of the northern forests such as the Algonquin, Ojibwe, Cree, and Innu nations. It is often described as a malevolent, cannibalistic spirit or creature associated with extreme greed, starvation, and a loss of humanity. The lore surrounding the Wendigo is deeply symbolic, tied to isolation, survival, and moral corruption themes. The origins of the Wendigo myth vary slightly between cultures. Still, it is generally seen as an evil spirit or a transformed human driven by an insatiable hunger for human flesh. The name Wendigo is derived from the Algonquin word wendigo, which means evil spirit or the spirit of hunger. This term describes both the creature and the state of mind it embodies. The Wendigo is believed to be a spirit that preys on the weak and isolated. It is often described as a gaunt, skeletal being with glowing eyes, long claws, and a mouth filled with sharp, jagged teeth. Its body is emaciated, yet it is cursed with endless hunger for human flesh. The creature is said to grow in size the more it eats, but its hunger never abates. No matter how much it consumes, it is forever starving. This represents the insidious nature of greed, as the Wendigo's insatiable appetite is a metaphor for unchecked gluttony and desire. The most disturbing aspect of the Wendigo myth is the belief that a person could become a Wendigo. This transformation is typically associated with the extreme conditions of starvation during harsh winters when survival in remote northern forests could become a brutal life or death struggle. According to the legend, someone who resorts to cannibalism to survive may become possessed by the Wendigo spirit, turning into a horrific monster. The person loses their humanity, consumed by an unrelenting need to feast on others. This transformation is often linked to greed and selfishness. Once the Wendigo spirit possesses a person, they are said to be driven to hunt down other humans to feed their insatiable hunger, regardless of the moral cost. The Wendigo myth also carries a deep psychological element, warning against the dangers of losing one's humanity in the face of extreme circumstances. It's said that the Wendigo spirit represents the primal urge to devour others for personal gain. This fear of the Wendigo can be seen as a way of reinforcing social norms, warning against selfishness and greed, which, if allowed to grow unchecked, can turn one into something monstrous. The Wendigo's hunger symbolizes not only physical but also emotional and moral starvation. This idea is mirrored in certain modern interpretations where the Wendigo is viewed as a manifestation of unbridled capitalism, consumerism, or environmental destruction, forces that consume without end, leaving ruin in their wake. The Wendigo's myth has made its way into popular culture over the years, becoming a staple of horror literature, films, and video games. It often appears as a terrifying monster, sometimes with supernatural powers capable of inducing madness, extreme cold, or even the ability to mimic voices to lure victims into the forest. This has only deepened the mystique and terror surrounding the creature. However, there are more subtle psychological interpretations in modern times. The Wendigo has been depicted in various stories as a metaphor for addiction, insatiable greed, and the horror of becoming consumed by one's worst impulses. The Wendigo has been depicted in various stories as a metaphor for addiction, insatiable greed, and the horror of becoming consumed by one's worst impulses. In some cases, individuals who fall prey to the Wendigo are described as losing their humanity to addiction or obsessive desires, becoming twisted and monstrous as they give in to their obsessions. One of the most intriguing aspects of Wendigo folklore is the concept of Wendigo psychosis, a term coined by early European settlers in North America. It refers to a condition in which individuals, often suffering from extreme hunger or isolation, develop an uncontrollable desire to consume human flesh. There were documented cases, particularly during long winters or famines, where people in isolated communities began to believe they had become possessed by the Wendigo spirit. In their desperation, they were driven to commit acts of cannibalism. Wendigo psychosis is considered a form of cultural belief rather than a recognized medical condition. Still, it is often used to explain cases of cannibalism that occur during times of extreme scarcity. The idea is that individuals in a state of profound hunger, particularly in areas with harsh winters, might be psychologically overwhelmed and driven to this extreme behavior while also experiencing a spiritual or psychological breakdown that made them feel as though they were becoming Wendigos themselves. The Wendigo is not just a mindless predator. It is said to carry a curse. Those who fall victim to the Wendigo's hunger or become Wendigos themselves are doomed to wander the earth forever, trapped in their monstrous form, never able to satisfy their endless hunger. The curse of the Wendigo is inescapable and eternal, reflecting the idea that moral corruption, whether through greed, cannibalism, or unchecked desire, leads to spiritual damnation. In contemporary culture, the Wendigo is sometimes used as a metaphor for humanity's darkest impulses. It appears in various media, from Stephen King's Pet Sematary to video games like Until Dawn and films like The Ritual and Antlers. These portrayals often keep the core idea of the Wendigo as a terrifying, insatiable creature while also exploring the psychological and symbolic aspects of the myth. It remains a chilling reminder of how survival, greed, and the abuse of power can transform people into something monstrous and unrecognizable. In some Native American cultures, the Wendigo myth is still told today, often emphasizing teaching young people about the dangers of selfishness, greed, and the loss of one's humanity. It serves as a moral lesson, warning against the dehumanizing effects of unchecked desires, particularly when survival becomes a primary focus. The Wendigo is a creature born from fear of isolation, hunger, and losing control. It represents the fragility of human soul when faced with the harshest elements of nature and the worst aspects of human nature itself. Whether viewed as a physical monster or psychological terror, the Wendigo remains one of the world's most compelling and terrifying cryptids, an embodiment of the darkness that lies just beneath the surface of human civilization. The Wendigo has become a profoundly unsettling figure in modern horror, evolving from a regional myth into a global symbol of fear, greed, and monstrous transformation. Its depiction in horror media varies widely, but it typically retains core elements of the original lore: an insatiable hunger, the loss of humanity, and an overwhelmingly malevolence. Over time, the Wendigo has come to represent not just a supernatural threat, but a reflection of humanity's darkest impulses. We will explore how the Wendigo is portrayed in horror, focusing on traditional and modern interpretations, classic horror elements, and Wendigo depictions. 1. Insatiable hunger and cannibalism. The most iconic trait of the Wendigo is this endless, all-consuming hunger, which is often portrayed as a grotesque drive to consume human flesh. In horror depictions, this hunger is not just physical. It is a metaphor for addiction, obsession, or greed. The Wendigo can never be satisfied. This eternal craving drives it to hunt and kill. This portrayal taps into primal fears of starvation, the violation of the body, and moral corruption. 2. Supernatural transformation. In some horror stories, the Wendigo is a former human corrupted by greed and cannibalism, turning into a supernatural creature. This transformation is usually portrayed as horrific, with the human's body becoming gaunt, emaciated, and monstrous. The Wendigo may exhibit animalistic features such as antlers, claws, or a terrifying elongated form, sometimes covered in frost or ice to signify its cold, hunger-driven existence. The idea that a human can lose their humanity and become a monstrous entity plays into horror's fascination with identity, corruption, and the fragility of the human soul. 3. Isolation as psychological horror. The Wendigo is often associated with remote, isolated environments such as deep forests or frozen wilderness, amplifying the horror of being stranded with an entity that embodies both physical and psychological terror. The central theme is the fear of being hunted, stalked, and consumed by an unseen force in the wild. Horror stories featuring the Wendigo frequently emphasize the madness that isolation can induce, with characters experiencing paranoia, delusion, and despair as they confront the creature or their dark tendencies. 4. Paranoia and the fear of becoming one. The fear of transformation into a Wendigo is a recurrent theme in horror. The idea that a person could be driven to cannibalism by extreme hunger and in doing so lose their humanity plays into existential fears. What if the thing we fear most, becoming a monster, was already inside of us? This fear is often portrayed in stories where characters stranded in the wilderness or suffering from starvation begin to doubt their sanity and moral compass. Could they be the next Wendigo? Could they succumb to the same fate? In contemporary horror, the Wendigo has evolved into a symbol of broader societal anxieties, often reflecting themes of greed, environmental destruction, and the collapse of civilization. Here are a few key ways in which the Wendigo is portrayed in modern horror. Psychological horror and allegory. Many modern depictions of the Wendigo lean heavily into psychological horror, with the creature often representing addiction, mental illness, or the consequences of unchecked desires. For example, the Wendigo can symbolize the destructive effects of greed, showing how it gnaws away at a person's humanity until they are nothing more than a ravenous beast. In these stories, the Wendigo isn't just a monster. It is a mirror for the darker side of human nature, showing how something as simple as survival or desire can spiral into horrific extremes. For example, in The Ritual in 2017, a group of friends venture into a remote Scandinavian forest and are stalked by an ancient, malevolent entity. The film subtly suggests that the Wendigo-like creature manifests human greed as the characters are tested by their past decisions, which involve betrayal and selfishness. The forest is a place of physical and psychological isolation, and the creature is an extension of the character's inner demons. The Wendigo as a monster. In many horror movies, the Wendigo is depicted as a terrifying, physical entity, often with supernatural powers. The creature may appear as an enormous, twisted figure with glowing eyes, antlers, sharp claws, and the ability to freeze its victims in fear or even mimic human voices. The Wendigo in these depictions is often a physical force of nature, stalking its prey with relentless hunger and predatory cunning. Its supernatural qualities may include superhuman strength, control of their environment, such as summoning snowstorms or creating freezing temperatures, or possessing and controlling people. In the movie Antlers in 2021, the Wendigo is portrayed as a grotesque, horned creature that embodies both physical horror and psychological torment. The film explores the idea of human corruption and the consequences of trauma, with the Wendigo manifesting both the literal and metaphorical hunger that plagues the characters. As the story unfolds, the Wendigo's horrific transformation reflects how consuming trauma and abuse can turn a person into something monstrous. Another modern interpretation of the Wendigo focuses on environmental horror. In these depictions, the Wendigo symbolizes nature's wrath and the destructive consequences of humanity's exploitation of the earth. The Wendigo becomes a vengeful spirit of the wild, punishing those encroaching on its domain. It also represents the darkness that festers in the places we have abandoned or forgotten, the wilderness, reclaiming its power over those who venture too far. In reference to another example, the horror video game Until Dawn 2015 features a Wendigo-like creature that results from a dark ritual gone wrong in the mountains. The creature hunts and possesses humans, turning them into mindless killers. The game draws on themes of isolation, sin, and the corrupting influence of greed as the characters uncover the bloody history behind the Wendigo's existence in the remote mountains. As some contemporary horror stories, the Wendigo's true horror is psychological rather than physical. The creature may not be seen directly, but its presence is felt through the character's growing paranoia, fear, and madness. This interpretation plays with the idea that the Wendigo exists as a manifestation of mental breakdown, driving people to commit acts of violence or cannibalism, often through visions, hallucinations, or whispers. In The Last Winter, 2006, the Wendigo is hinted at as a supernatural force tied to the land, influencing the characters' minds and perceptions of reality. The tension and fear come not just from a physical monster, but from the characters' slow psychological unraveling as they are affected by the harsh conditions and their growing sense of isolation in the remote Arctic landscape. The legacy and enduring power of the Wendigo in horror. The Wendigo has proven to be an adaptable figure in horror, transcending its cultural origins to become a versatile symbol of various fears. Whether it's the fear of isolation, the consequences of greed, or the primal terror of losing one's humanity, the Wendigo taps into universal themes that remain compelling in modern horror. Its grotesque hunger, supernatural power, and ability to transform people into monstrous beings make it one of the most enduring cryptid figures in the genre. In horror films, books, and games, the Wendigo often challenges the character's moral integrity, sense of survival, and ultimately, very identities. It's a creature that blurs the lines between human and monster, a relentless force that makes us question how thin that line really is. Sasquatch, also known as Bigfoot, has long been a figure of intrigue and mystery in North American folklore, with stories of a large, ape-like creature living in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest and beyond. While many perceive Sasquatch as a cryptid, a creature whose existence is debated and unproven, its presence in indigenous stories and contemporary culture paints a picture of a being much deeper and more complex than the simple myth of an elusive monster. Over time, the lore of Sasquatch has evolved from the ancient tribal beliefs to modern-day legends, often tinged with darkness and supernatural elements. The origins of Sasquatch lie in the oral traditions of indigenous people across North America, particularly those in the Pacific Northwest. The creature is often viewed as a spiritual being or a guardian of the wilderness, connected to the land and its natural forces. The exact nature of Sasquatch varies from tribe to tribe, but many cultures believe that the creature is part of a hidden world that exists parallel to our own. The Salish people of the Pacific Northwest refer to Sasquatch as squash or Sasquatch, and some stories portray the creature as a powerful, almost divine being who watches over the forest. In these tales, Sasquatch protects the natural world, punishing those who mistreat the land and wildlife. The Chinook people describe the creature as a giant, hair-covered man who was a spiritual guide and protector. The creature is said to live in remote areas to ensure the balance of nature remains intact. The Algonquin and other eastern tribes have different variations of the stone giant or great spirit, which may be a distant ancestor to modern Sasquatch myth. For these groups, the creature was sometimes seen as an intermediary between humans and the spiritual world, with the ability to communicate through signs or omens. These ancient depictions often present Sasquatch not as a terrifying monster, but as a creature of wisdom and power, sometimes involved in moral lessons or guiding those who venture too far into the wilderness. In this context, Sasquatch was not just a physical entity, but a symbol of the balance between man and nature and a reminder of the dangers of overstepping one's boundaries in a natural world. The evolution into a dark figure. With the arrival of European settlers and the expansion of American frontiers, Sasquatch's image began to shift. As indigenous cultures and the myths were systematically suppressed, Sasquatch's portrayal in popular culture began to transform that of a sacred or spiritual being into a more fearful and even monstrous figure. European settlers and explorers began reporting sightings of a large, human-like creatures in the woods. These accounts were often vague, blending the legend of Sasquatch with other mythological creatures like wild men or forest giants. In many cases, these stories were colored by a European belief in monstrous beings lurking on the fringes of civilization. The wild man of the woods. By the 19th century, Sasquatch was often associated with the figure of the wild man, a feral, uncivilized creature that was both feared and fascinated. These wild men were usually depicted as violent or dangerous, attacking travelers and settlers. The stories of wild men were a popular genre in European folklore, and as settlers encountered new, unfamiliar landscapes, they projected these fears onto the wilderness of the New World. The 20th century saw the transformation of Sasquatch into a modern cryptid, an unverified and often malevolent creature. The 1950s and 1960s, with the rise of UFO and paranormal interest in American culture, marked a shift in Sasquatch's lore. The beast became associated with the strange and the unexplained, with some claiming that Sasquatch was an extraterrestrial being or interdimensional entity. As Sasquatch transitioned into a more feared figure, darker elements began to surface in its mythology. Abductions and attacks. Many modern Sasquatch stories revolve around encounters where the creature is seen as aggressive or predatory. There are reports of Sasquatch allegedly attacking people or abducting them, often to take them deep into the forest, never to be seen again. These stories invoke a fear of the unknown wilderness and a deep distrust of the natural world. The Missing 411 phenomenon. The Missing 411 series, a collection of real-life disappearances of people in national parks and forests, have contributed to the darker side of the Sasquatch lore. Some have speculated that Sasquatch may be responsible for some of these vanishings through attacks or abductions. While no definitive evidence supports this claim, it taps into the primal fear of being hunted by something far more substantial and cunning than humans. The woody and screaming Sasquatch encounters. In some parts of North America, there are stories of Sasquatch emitting terrifying screams or howls that paralyze listeners with fear. These sounds are often described as otherworldly, echoing through the forest and filling the air with foreboding. In some versions of the lore, these cries are not just the call of a creature, but a signal of something far darker, such as a harbinger of death or an omen of impending doom. The cannibalistic Sasquatch. Another layer of darkness added to the Sasquatch mythos is the idea that the creature is cannibalistic or predatory. Stories of Sasquatch raiding campsites, stealing food or supplies, or even attacking and consuming animals or humans have emerged. While the idea of a cannibalistic Sasquatch is relatively modern, it plays into the primal fear of a monstrous being lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike when least expected. Sasquatch as an ancient malevolent force. In specific interpretations, Sasquatch is seen as an ancient force of nature that predates humanity, a remnant of a forgotten time when giants roamed the earth. In these stories, the creature may represent a wrathful natural spirit that punishes humans for their trespasses. It becomes less of a protector and more of an avenger, punishing the encroachment of modernity on sacred and untouched lands. Sasquatch has found a significant place in popular culture, from cryptozoology documentaries to horror films and TV shows. In these depictions, the creature is often portrayed as a terrifying, unknowable entity that thrives in the darkest corners of the forest. TV shows like Finding Bigfoot and Destination Truth have both embraced and sensationalized Sasquatch sightings, framing them as part of a broader search for mysterious, unknown creatures. These shows have influenced how people view Sasquatch not as a simple cryptid, but as part of a larger mythos of supernatural entities. The dark lore of Sasquatch is a blend of ancient spiritual beliefs, settler fears, and modern-day cryptozoological speculation. Its history has transformed from a figure of respect and awe to suspicion and fear, a creature that bridges the line between myth and reality. Sasquatch continues to captivate imaginations, symbolizing not only the wild and untamed nature of the forest, but also the darker, hidden forces of the natural world that remain beyond human understanding. Whether as a protector, a spirit, or a malevolent force, Sasquatch remains a creature shrouded in mystery, forever elusive and frightening. The Loch Ness Monster, often referred to as Nessie, is one of the world's most enduring and enigmatic cryptids. Its dark lore has fascinated and terrified people for centuries, with its origins steeped in myth, superstition, and mysterious sightings. Here's a look at the darkest side of the Loch Ness Monster and where its origins might lie. The Loch Ness Monster's story stretches back far before the famous sightings of the 20th century. The legend's origin likely intertwined with the ancient Celtic myths and the region's pre-Christian beliefs. One of the earliest references to a creature resembling the Loch Ness Monster comes from Celtic folklore, particularly the myth of the Kelpie or the water horse, a shape-shifting creature that lived in lochs and rivers. Kelpies were said to appear as horses but could change into terrifying sea serpents, luring people to their watery doom. The concept of a serpent-like creature living in Loch Ness likely arose from these ancient stories, with the Kelpie myth adding an element of malevolence and danger. The Picts, an ancient people who inhabited Scotland before the arrival of the Scots, also had an affinity for water-based mythologies. Carvings and stones found in Scotland show images of serpent-like creatures, which some suggest could be early representations of what would later become Nessie. Being a seafaring and warrior culture, the Picts could have passed down stories of terrifying creatures lurking beneath the surface of lochs and rivers. One of the earliest recorded stories involving a creature in Loch Ness comes from the 6th century and involves Saint Columba, the Irish missionary who traveled to Scotland to spread Christianity. According to the life of Saint Columba, written by Adoniman of Iona, the saint and his followers traveled along the River Ness and encountered a water beast that attacked a man swimming in the river. Columba is said to have ordered the creature to go back in the name of God, and it immediately retreated. This story intertwines the Loch Ness Monster with both local superstition and the arrival of Christianity, representing the triumph of faith over dark, pagan forces. In the following centuries, tales of strange creatures in Loch Ness continued to evolve, though they were often dismissed as mere superstition or exaggerated folklore. It wasn't until the early 20th century that Nessie would become a global phenomenon. The modern legend of Loch Ness Monster began in 1933, when a new road was built along Loch Ness, allowing more people to visit the area. Soon after, sightings of a large creature in the loch flooded the press. The most famous was a surgeon's photograph in 1934, which purportedly showed a long-necked creature in the waters. Despite being widely debunked as a hoax, this photo cemented Nessie's place in popular culture. Nessie's image evolved from a harmless curiosity to something more sinister. Some stories claim that the Loch Ness Monster is a guardian of ancient, hidden treasures, perhaps remnants of pre-Christian civilization or artifacts from a forgotten age. Others describe Nessie as a vengeful spirit that attacks those who venture too close to his domain, especially those who disturb the waters or disrespect the ancient land. Theories about the Loch Ness Monster's origin are also varied and mysterious as the creature itself. Some suggest that Nessie is a prehistoric survivor, a remnant of the dinosaur age, while others see her as something darker and more supernatural. One of the most popular theories is that the Nessie is a surviving plesiosaur, a marine reptile that lived millions of years ago. The idea is that the loch, an ancient body of water, could have sheltered these creatures long after the age of the dinosaurs. However, no definitive evidence has ever been found to support this theory. In darker and more mystical interpretations, Nessie is seen not as a mere animal, but as a guardian spirit or elemental force tied to the loch. According to some occult beliefs, the Loch Ness Monster could be a manifestation of an ancient water deity or relentless spirit cursed to haunt the waters for eternity. These theories also suggest that Nessie may have been summoned through ancient rituals or perhaps represents the vengeful soul of a person or civilization wronged in a distant past. Some French theories suggest that the Loch Ness Monster is not a creature from Earth, but an entity from another dimension, appearing and disappearing as it crosses between worlds. This story aligns with the idea that cryptids are interdimensional travelers existing in a space outside our understanding of reality. With its deep waters and mysterious atmosphere, Loch Ness is seen as a portal through which the creature can slip in and out. A more modern theory posits that Nessie is a creation of extraterrestrial forces, either a bioengineered species or an alien creature left behind on Earth to observe or protect something. This theory has been bolstered by occasional reports of UFO sightings in Loch Ness area, with some believing that the creature is part of an alien experiment or surveillance program. The Loch Ness Monster is not only a cryptid, but also a symbol of something deeper and darker. With its vast, murky waters and the surrounding mist-covered hills, Loch Ness is a place of eerie mystery. The idea of a creature lurking in its depths taps into primal fears, the fear of the unknown and the fear of what may be hidden beneath the surface, and the fear of nature's uncontrollable power. Nessie represents the shadowy forces of the natural world, entities that are not fully understood or easily controlled. The creature's elusiveness, combined with its occasional burst of violence or malevolence in folklore, symbolizes humanity's vulnerability and our inability to tame nature entirely. In this light, Nessie is not merely a creature of mystery, but a reminder of the darker forces at work in the world, forces that are often beyond human comprehension and control. The dark lore of the Loch Ness Monster blends ancient myth, Celtic folklore, and modern mystery to create a figure that is haunting as it is fascinating. Whether as a prehistoric survivor, a supernatural guardian, or an alien interloper, Nessie remains a symbol of the unknown, a creature that haunts the deep waters of Loch Ness and our collective imagination. The darkness surrounding the Loch Ness Monster is not just in the creature itself, but in what it represents. The boundaries of the known world, the terror of the unexplained, and the eternal allure of what lies beneath the surface. The concept of skinwalkers is deeply rooted in folklore and mythology of the Navajo people. However, similar shape-shifting legends appear in various other Native American traditions and even in other cultures worldwide. The skinwalker, known as Yinaldushi in the Navajo language, translates roughly to using it, he goes on all fours. They are thought to be witches or sorcerers capable of transforming into animals, most commonly wolves, coyotes, foxes, or other creatures associated with the wild. Still, they may also adopt human forms or the traits of any animal they desire. The origins of the skinwalker myth can be traced to Navajo spirituality and their beliefs about witches. These witches, sometimes called Anahi, evil witches, use their knowledge of the spiritual and material worlds for malicious purposes. In the Navajo culture, the practice of witchcraft is considered taboo, and the most dangerous witches are those who can take on the form of animals. According to the myth, a skinwalker is typically someone who has chosen to walk the path of evil and uses dark powers to control and manipulate others. Becoming a skinwalker involves a terrible act. A person must kill a close family member, often a sibling or parent, to gain the power to shapeshift. This horrendous act is considered the ultimate taboo. A vile violation of natural and spiritual order, and one that irrevocably condemns the individual to a life of dark magic. The Skinwalker's primary ability is shapeshifting, though their powers go far beyond mere transformation. A Skinwalker can take the form of any animal, but they often prefer wolves, coyotes, and other creatures tied to their culture's mythology. The transformation may be complete, with the Skinwalker assuming the animal's physical traits, or it may involve a more partial or ghostly change. Skinwalkers are said to have the ability to mimic the voices of loved ones or others, drawing unsuspecting people into dangerous situations. This ability is often used to trick people into approaching them or venturing into the wilderness. In their animal forms, Skinwalkers are said to possess extraordinary strength, speed, and endurance. They are often described as nearly unstoppable, even able to outrun vehicles or leap great distances. Skinwalkers are often believed to possess the power to curse individuals with sickness or bad luck. They can cast harmful spells, causing death or misfortune in the lives of those they target. Skinwalkers are reputed to be immune to bullets or other forms of physical harm in their animal form. The legend says they can only be killed by a specific ritual or by someone who knows how to deal with them. The role of the Skinwalker in Navajo culture. In Navajo tradition, the Skinwalker is not just a boogeyman or an evil figure. They symbolize moral corruption and the consequences of violating secret taboos. For the Navajo, the idea of a Skinwalker represents the ultimate abuse of power, using knowledge of the spiritual world for malicious purposes. It's a belief deeply intertwined with the Navajo Code of Ethics, where maintaining harmony with nature and respecting the balance of life are of utmost importance. Skinwalkers are also associated with death, illness, and misfortune. Their presence is thought to bring bad omens, and their actions are often believed to cause unexplained deaths or catastrophic events. To the Navajo, talking about Skinwalkers or acknowledging their existence is considered dangerous and may invite bad luck or even attract the attention of Skinwalkers themselves. The fear and the taboo. Skinwalker lore is not just a myth, but a deeply ingrained taboo within Navajo society. There's a profound fear of these creatures, and many Navajo individuals will go out of their way to avoid speaking about them or discussing them openly. The very act of saying the word Skinwalker aloud is considered to invite danger. It's said that those who seek to confront or expose Skinwalkers are often cursed or harmed in some way. Because of this fear, many Navajo refuse to engage with outsiders on the subject, believing that speaking about the Skinwalkers may draw their attention and result in retaliation. Skinwalker stories are often shared only in hushed tones, late at night, or in isolated settings. Skinwalkers in modern folklore. Over time, the Skinwalker legend has evolved and spread beyond Navajo culture, becoming a fixture of broader American paranormal folklore. The myth has gained significant traction in popular culture, especially within the realm of horror films, books, and TV shows. For instance, the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah has become famous for purported paranormal activity, including claims of Skinwalker encounters, adding to the mythos surrounding the creatures. In contemporary stories, Skinwalkers are often depicted as shape-shifting, malevolent beings that prey on unsuspecting individuals. They are associated with cryptic encounters, unexplained phenomena, and ghostly apparitions, lending themselves to the modern horror genre. However, it's important to recognize that in Navajo culture, these beings are not just creatures to be feared. They represent a much deeper spiritual and ethical lesson. To the Navajo, the Skinwalker myth warns against the dangers of misuse of power, the consequences of losing one's moral compass, and the spiritual dangers of violating sacred traditions. In many ways, the Skinwalker myth is a cautionary tale about the dangers of losing touch with one's humanity and spiritual values. It highlights that when individuals engage in unethical or taboo behavior, particularly when they seek to wield powers they do not fully understand, they risk becoming monstrous. The Skinwalker is not just a physical transformation, but a spiritual one, representing the corruption of the soul. The Navajo people believe that Skinwalkers can be defeated, but it's often a complicated and dangerous task. Traditional methods to protect oneself from Skinwalkers include using rituals, prayers, or talismans, and seeking the guidance of a Navajo medicine man. However, this remains a deeply personal and culturally specific practice. The Skinwalker's dark lore reflects the Navajo people's deep respect for the natural and spiritual worlds and their profound understanding of the consequence of moral corruption. The Skinwalker symbolizes evil and a dire warning about the dangers of abusing one's power. While the myth has been adapted and commercialized in popular culture, its roots remain deeply tied to the Navajo worldview and the importance of maintaining harmony with the world around us. Whether regarded as folklore, mythology, or living cultural belief, the Skinwalker is a creature that evokes both fear and respect, a reminder of the shadows that dwell within the human soul. The reptilian shapeshifter conspiracy theory is one of the more outlandish and enduring myths in modern conspiracy lore. This theory claims that a race of reptilian extraterrestrials, or reptoids, secretly controls humanity by disguising themselves as humans, sometimes as prominent political leaders, business magnates, or other influential figures. These shape-shifting creatures are often portrayed as manipulating global events for their sinister purposes, often connected to power, wealth, and the subjugation of humankind. The modern iteration of the reptilian conspiracy theory is most famously associated with British conspiracy theorist David Icke. In the early 1990s, Icke, once a professional footballer and a BBC presenter, began to promote the idea that the world's political and financial elites were reptilian aliens or hybrids. According to Icke, these reptilian beings have controlled human civilization for millennia. He first outlined his theory in his 1999 book, The Biggest Secret, which popularized the concept of shape-shifting reptilian overlords. Icke asserts that these reptilians come from the Alpha Draconis star system and have been manipulating human society through bloodlines, particularly royal or political families. They allegedly use their shape-shifting abilities to assume human forms, hiding their true reptilian nature behind a veneer of human appearance. The concept of reptilian beings is not new and can be traced back to ancient myths and folklore. Many cultures feature serpent or reptile-like gods, such as the serpent in the Garden of Eden, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god of the Aztecs and Mayans, the Nagas, semi-divine beings in Hindu and Buddhist mythology, often depicted as serpentine. Icke and others argue that these myths are symbolic and represent the presence of reptilian entities interacting with humanity in ancient times. They believe these ancient interactions laid the groundwork for the supposed reptilian agenda that persists to this day. One key aspect of the reptilian conspiracy theory is the belief that these reptilian beings possess the ability to shapeshift into human forms. These abilities allow them to infiltrate and assume positions of power within human society without detection. According to the theory, many of the world's prominent families, including the British royal family and the Rothschilds and other elite dynasties, are allegedly either direct descendants of reptilian aliens or hybridized humans with reptilian DNA. This is sometimes referred to as the Illuminati bloodlines. These reptilian elites are said to control global politics, finance, media, and other sectors of society to maintain their grip on power. They allegedly use various forms of social manipulation, such as wars, economic crises, and media control to advance their agenda. A core tenet of the reptilian conspiracy theory is that these entities seek to control every aspect of human society, from politics to media to finance. The idea is that they manipulate global events to keep the masses ignorant and subjugated, often through mind control or mass deception. Some proponents of the theory intertwine the reptilian narrative with darker, more religiously oriented conspiracies. They believe that these reptilian beings are malevolent, even demonic in nature, and are aligned with Satan and other dark forces. This is sometimes linked to other conspiracy theories, such as those surrounding ritualistic abuse, the Illuminati, or the New World Order. Another key element of the reptilian conspiracy theory involves the idea that humans and reptilian aliens have interbred for centuries, creating hybrid beings who possess both human and reptilian traits. These hybrids are said to be more adept at maintaining power, as they can bridge the gap between human and the reptilian worlds. The New World Order. The reptilian conspiracy is often closely tied to the concept of the New World Order, a supposed secret global elite seeking to establish a totalitarian one-world government. According to these theories, reptilian shapeshifters are at the heart of the NWO, working to implement an international control system through the manipulation of politics, finance, and religion. Some variations of the reptilian conspiracy involve advanced technologies used by the reptilian race to control human minds. These technologies could range from satellites and electromagnetic weapons to mind control implants, or even more mystical technologies like telepathy. Most scholars, skeptics, and critical thinkers dismiss the reptilian conspiracy theory as pure fantasy. Several reasons for this skepticism include: there is no credible scientific or historical evidence to support the existence of reptilian shapeshifters or extraterrestrial intervention in human affairs. Some psychologists suggest that beliefs in reptilian conspiracies stem from a combination of paranoia, distrust of authority, and the human tendency to look for hidden patterns in complex systems. A more straightforward explanation for global control and manipulation, some argue, is that powerful human elites, rather than reptilian aliens, are the ones behind much of the world's injustice, exploitation, and inequality. Despite being widely criticized and debunked, the reptilian conspiracy theory has maintained a strong presence in popular culture and online communities. The idea of shape-shifting reptilian overlords has been featured in various TV shows, movies, and books, such as The X-Files, V, the 1983 miniseries and its 2009 reboot, and even in video games. David Icke's books, public speaking tours, and internet presence have helped to spread the reptilian theory to a large, often devoted following. Online forums and social media platforms continue to be fertile ground for the exchange of ideas, theories, and evidence related to the existence of reptilian shapeshifters. Like many conspiracy theories, the reptilian shapeshifter narrative taps into deep-seated fears about power, control, and the unknown. The idea that alien forces secretly govern humanity appeals to those who feel disenfranchised, suspicious of the establishment, or frustrated by the complexity of world events. For some, it provides a simple explanation for why the world is the way it is, pointing to shadowy, malevolent forces controlling everything from behind the scenes. In short, while the theory is grounded in an elaborate mythology of reptilian overlords and their cosmic manipulation of humanity, it remains firmly within speculative fiction and pseudoscience. The reptilian conspiracy continues to thrive as a part of a larger, ever-evolving tapestry of alternative and counterculture beliefs about power and control in the modern world. The Yeti, often depicted as a large ape-like creature that roams the snowy mountains of the Himalayas, has long been a subject of mystery and intrigue. While the Yeti is mostly regarded as a figure of folklore and cryptozoology, its dark mythological origins stretch deep into the traditions of the region's indigenous people. Here's a look at the darker side of the Yeti myth. Origins and shamanic beliefs. The Yeti is deeply rooted in the spiritual and mystical traditions of the Himalayan people. In many Tibetan and Sherpa cultures, the Yeti is not just a physical but spiritual one. Some believe that the Yeti is an ancient, decisive spirit that serves as a guardian of the mountains. The creature is often associated with the high-altitude, dangerous environment of the Himalayas, a place where life and death are in a delicate balance. In this sense, the Yeti can be seen as a spirit or god that punishes those who venture too far into the sacred realms of the mountains, enforcing the natural order. Shamans in these regions are said to have exceptional knowledge of the Yeti, claiming that the creature can either help or harm humans based on their respect for nature. Disrespecting the mountain or desecrating its sacred spaces could invoke the wrath of the Yeti. There are even stories of shamans who have communicated with the Yeti, learning secrets of the world beyond the physical realm. In some versions of the Yeti mythology, the creature is said to have a much darker, more monstrous side. The Yeti is sometimes depicted as an aggressive predator or cannibalistic entity. While many stories focus on its elusive nature, other accounts suggest that the Yeti might engage in violent acts against humans. In certain villages, whispered legends of the Yeti capture and consume the bodies of lost travelers or unwary pilgrims who have ventured too close to his domain. This kind of myth plays into the fear of the unknown that looms over the mountains. In some versions of the tale, the Yeti is even described as a semi-human creature that occasionally mates with humans, resulting in twisted offspring. If they exist, these offspring are often described as cursed or outcasts, neither fully human nor entirely creature, trapped between two worlds. The Yeti as a demon. In Tibetan Buddhist mythology, there are stories that cast the Yeti as a demonic entity. Some texts refer to the Menge, a wild and terrifying creature that dwells in the mountains, preying on the souls of the living. The Yeti, in this context, may be a manifestation of demonic spirit that haunts the high peaks, luring travelers to their doom or consuming their very life force. These legends often depict the creature as having supernatural abilities, including the ability to disappear at will, hypnotize, or confuse its prey, and leave behind no trace of its presence. The Yeti's connection to death and the afterlife is essential to the darker lore. In some cultures, it is believed that if a Yeti kills a person, their soul is lost forever, unable to pass on to the next realm. This may explain the superstition surrounding the creature in these regions. If you cross paths with the Yeti, you may lose your life and your soul. The abominable snowman and its corruption. The name abominable snowman itself evokes a sense of dread. This term was coined by British explorer Henry Newman in the 1920s based on an alleged encounter with the creature. While the Yeti has various regional names, including Mete, Megoi, and Julme, the term abominable adds a sinister twist, hinting at the corruption of the creature's true nature. In some myth variations, the Yeti's appearance is altered to become more terrifying, its humanoid features exaggerated to make it even more monstrous. With glowing red eyes, razor-sharp claws, and an insatiable hunger, the Yeti becomes less of a cryptid and more of a supernatural force, a warning against venturing too deep into the icy wastes of the Himalayas. Another dark aspect of the Yeti mythology ties the creature to forbidden knowledge. Some stories claim that the Yeti keeps ancient secrets, perhaps even remnants of lost civilizations that once inhabited the region. This knowledge is said to be dangerous, too much power to be handled by mortal minds. The Yeti, in these versions, might actively prevent explorers and seekers from uncovering these secrets with violent consequences for those who attempt to breach the mountain's forbidden gates. The legend of the Yeti guarding ancient artifacts or sacred places is not just about a physical guardian, but also a metaphysical one. Those who seek the Yeti are not merely after the creature itself, but the knowledge it holds. The fear is that anyone who discovers these ancient truths risks being driven mad or cursed, as they are unprepared to face the darkness that the creature protects. The Yeti, is often depicted as a giant ape-like being. Still, in some darker renditions, the Yeti is described as having more human characteristics, standing upright like a man with long matted hair and an eerie intelligence in its eyes. This hybrid nature of the Yeti, straddling the line between man and beast, is often used in folklore to explore the duality of human nature. The Yeti represents the untamed, primal side of humanity that exists beyond the reach of civilization, lurking in the wilderness beyond the laws of society. Some cultures describe the Yeti as a fallen figure, a being that was once human but was transformed into a monster due to some terrible sin or punishment. In these versions, the Yeti becomes a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness within all people and the consequences of giving into it. The Yeti is often a symbol of isolation and extremity of the Himalayas themselves. These mountains are seen as inhospitable, remote, and deadly, and yet, the Yeti embodies this terrifying environment. In this interpretation, the Yeti is not just a creature to fear in a physical sense, but also represents the psychological horror of solitude, of being lost in a landscape that is both awe-inspiring and lethal. It is a creature that exists in the margins, between the living world and the afterlife, a spectral figure that haunts those who venture too far from the safety of civilization. In many ways, the Yeti embodies the mountain's oppressive, inescapable force, a reminder that nature reigns. In many ways, the Yeti embodies the mountain's oppressive, inescapable force, a reminder that nature reigns supreme in these vast, uncharted places and humans are merely fleeting visitors. The dark lore surrounding the Yeti is as layered and mysterious as the snow-covered mountains it is said to inhabit. Whether as a guardian spirit, a demonic entity, or a symbol of untamed wilderness, the Yeti represents the unknown, the primal, and the terrifying aspects of human condition. The stories of the Yeti have evolved over centuries, shaped by the cultures of the Himalayas and the legends that have been passed down through generations. Ultimately, the Yeti is not just a creature to fear. It is a complex myth that speaks to humanity's deepest fears about death, isolation, and the natural world. The Barghest is a creature from English folklore, particularly associated with the northern counties such as Yorkshire and Lancashire. It is often described as a terrifying, spectral black dog that appears in various forms, each more chilling than the last. The creature has dark ties to death, misfortune, and the supernatural, making it one of the more haunting figures in British mythology. The Barghest is typically described as a gigantic black dog with glowing red or yellow eyes that pierce the darkness. Its size and form can change. Some legends describe it as a hound of enormous proportions, while others depict it as a more sinister, shadowy figure that materializes from the mist or the night. The word Barghest itself is sometimes thought to be derived from Bearghest or Bargust, meaning a ghost or spirit of a bear, further suggesting the creature's ominous nature. In some myths, the Barghest is said to have no tail or is shown as a headless creature. Other accounts portray it as a demonic or otherworldly being with a blood-curdling howl that portends death or disaster. The Hound of Death. The Barghest is often regarded as an omen of death. Its appearance is said to herald a person's passing, usually one who has been marked for death. When it appears near a town or village, it signals impending doom, or its howl or growl foreshadows an imminent tragedy or death in the community. In some legends, the Barghest is seen as a ghostly or revenant creature, an apparition of a dead person who returns as a canine. This connection ties the Barghest to necromancy and the restless souls of the deceased. People have reported sightings of the Barghest near burial grounds, crossroads, or desolate moors, places where the dead might rise or where spirits might linger. The shapeshifter. The Bargus is not always a dog. In some tales, it can shapeshift into other terrifying forms, such as a wolf or even a man, though the latter appearance usually retains an unsettling canine aspect. The creature's shifting form lends it an air of unpredictability and terror, making it a versatile and dangerous figure in folklore. The Hound of Hell. In some traditions, the Bargus is connected to demonic forces or infernal realms. Some say it serves as a messenger of hell or as an emissary of the devil. The Bargus' relationship to the supernatural and malevolent entities in these stories is often associated with the punishment of sinners or the gathering of souls. The Bargus in the Wild Hunt. Like the Wild Hunt in Germanic and Celtic mythology, the Bargus is sometimes linked to a ghostly pack of hunting dogs that chase the souls of the dead or those marked for death. The Hounds of the Wild Hunt are often depicted as hunting down the souls of the damned, and the Bargus is occasionally seen as one of their lead hounds. While the Bargus is primarily malevolent, in some versions of the myth, it serves as a guardian of a particular place, such as a sacred ground, a forest, or a lonely hilltop. These guardians are usually hostile to intruders, and those who encounter them are often met with a deadly fate if they don't show proper respect. Throughout northern England, there are many stories and legends about encounters with the Bargus. Some tell of travelers who wander too far from the beaten path only to encounter the creature and meet a grim end. Others describe the Bargus as a creature that stalks the living, particularly in remote or desolate areas where its presence is even more terrifying. The Bargus is also sometimes associated with the Puck or Puka, mischievous or malevolent supernatural beings from Celtic folklore. Like these creatures, the Bargus is a trickster who appears when least expected and often leads people astray, either into the wilderness or into the hands of death. The Bargus represents several deep-seated fears and themes in folklore: death, the supernatural, the unknown, and the boundary between the living and the dead. It embodies the dread of night, wandering too far, losing one's way, and being marked for an untimely death. Its mythos have persisted through centuries, often appearing in stories to this day. The Bargus is also a part of a broader tradition of black dog mythology in various cultures, often representing bad omens, ghosts, or underworld guardians. In conclusion, the Bargus is a creature steeped in fear, death, and the supernatural. Whether it's the harbinger of doom or a shape-shifting terror from the abyss, the Bargus haunts the dark corners of English folklore. Its tale reminds us of the shadowy world beyond the visible, where death and the supernatural lurk, waiting for those who wander too far into the night. The Jirogumo, also known as the Binding Bride or Spider Woman, is a figure from Japanese folklore that embodies a potent blend of seduction, deception, and monster transformation. Its mythology is steeped in dark, eerie tales with themes of danger lurking beneath beauty and the predatory nature of the creature. Here's a look at the darker lore surrounding the Jirogumo. The Jirogumo is typically depicted as a female spider, but it is also said to be a shapeshifter capable of transforming into a beautiful woman. Often, she is portrayed as an alluring and seductive figure who entices men only to ensnare them in her deadly webs. In its spider form, the Jirogumo can grow to enormous sizes, and in some stories, her webs are said to be so strong they can bind even a full-grown human. Her ability to lure and trap victims in her webs or homes is often associated with places like secluded inns or desolate temples, where her beauty and charm can deceive weary travelers or lonely men. The seductive web weaver. The most common myth revolves around the Jirogumo's ability to spin powerful, nearly invisible webs that seem to lure men into her grasp. The Spider Woman is said to appear as a beautiful woman, often dressed in traditional kimono, walking by the riversides or near the edge of the forest. Once she catches the eye of a man, she seduces him and leads him to her lair, where she reveals her true form as a monstrous spider. Once captured, the man is typically killed, and a Jirogumo consumes his body. In some versions, she tortures her victims by slowly draining their life force, and in others, she is said to devour them whole. In these tales, the Jirogumo is depicted as a symbol of the dangers that lurk beneath the surface of beauty, whether that be the deceptive nature of people or the unforeseen risk of seemingly harmless encounters. The woman who traps with her webs. One of the most famous legends is the story of a young man entranced by a beautiful Jirogumo. He is lured to a mountain retreat where he spends time with her, believing she is a kind-hearted woman. Over time, he notices strange occurrences. A lack of food or servants, a sense of foreboding that only grows as the days pass. One evening, the woman reveals herself as a giant spider, and her true, monstrous nature is bare. Her webs bind him, and in a horrifying display, she devours him slowly. This myth speaks to the idea of predation disguised as affection, and it is often a cautionary tale about the consequences of falling for something that appears to be too good to be true. The monk and the Spider Woman. In some versions of the myth, the Jirogumo's backstory is tied to her transformation. One tale tells of a monk who encounters a beautiful woman, only to find out she is a woman turned spider cursed by a previous sin. The monk must use his knowledge of Buddhist rituals to trap or exorcise the Jirogumo, cleansing her of the curse. However, the woman's spider's transformation is not always depicted as reversible, and sometimes her lust for human flesh is insatiable, meaning she cannot be redeemed. In these stories, there's often a tension between the concepts of sin and punishment, with the Spider Woman's monstrous form manifesting her guilt or resulting in karmic retribution. The grudge of the Jirogumo. The Jirogumo is tied to tragic love stories or vengeful spirits in certain dark tales. Some say that if a woman dies in despair or in agonizing manner, her soul may transform into a Jirogumo seeking to avenge herself in the living. This myth ties the Jirogumo to themes of unrequited love, vengeance, and the lingering presence of the dead. In these stories, the Jirogumo's victim might be someone who wronged her, perhaps a lover who betrayed her, or a man who took advantage of her. The symbolism and themes of the Jirogumo. Deceptive beauty. The Jirogumo represents the peril of being deceived by appearances. The image of a beautiful woman luring men into deadly traps is a recurring motive in many cultures, and the Jirogumo exemplifies the concepts of external beauty hiding a predatory nature. Nature's predation. As a spider, the Jirogumo symbolizes predation and natural violence. The silk thread, so delicate and strong, becomes a metaphor for fate or destiny, the invisible threads that bind people to certain paths, some leading to their doom. Duality of womanhood. The Jirogumo often reflects the dual nature of women in folklore, nurturing and beautiful on the surface, but with a dark, deadly power beneath. In some interpretations, the myth could be seen as a warning about the dangers of objectifying women or underestimating their power. Punishment and revenge. Some versions of the tale suggest that the Jirogumo's actions are motivated by a desire for revenge or to atone for past sins. This association links her to themes of karmic punishment or the wrath of a spirit wronged in life. Inescapable fate. The Jirogumo's webs are often portrayed as inescapable, mirroring fate or entrapment. Her ability to manipulate men and ensnare them in her webs can be seen as a symbol of inescapable nature of destiny, particularly for those who fall victim to their desires or weaknesses. In conclusion, the Jirogumo is one of Japan's most chilling and captivating mythological figures. With her mix of beauty, danger, and predatory instincts, she embodies themes of temptation, deception, and the fine line between the human and the monstrous. Through her stories, she serves as both a literal and metaphorical warning about the dangers of succumbing to illusion and the high price of underestimating the darkness that can lie within. The Mothman is one of the most fascinating and chilling cryptids in modern folklore. Its myth steeped in darkness and mystery. First reported in the 1960s, this creature is often described as a towering, humanoid figure with massive, bat-like wings and glowing red eyes. The eerie sightings and strange occurrences tied to the Mothman have fueled its association with doom, disaster, and forewarning. Origins of the Mothman myth. The first encounter with the Mothman occurred in November 1966 near Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The young couples were driving through the area when they saw a large, winged creature with glowing red eyes standing by an abandoned TNT plant. They described it as a man-sized bird or creature which had enormous wings that stretched out as it flew by their car, keeping pace with them at high speeds. Over the next year, more reports poured in from the local community describing a similar creature seen around the same area. These sightings quickly caught the attention of the public and media. But it wasn't just a creature that caused panic. Strange phenomena and mysterious events seemed to coincide with the Mothman sightings, building the narrative of an ominous, supernatural presence. The bridge collapse of 1967. Perhaps the most notorious aspect of Mothman lore is a purported connection to the tragic collapse of the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant on December 15, 1967. Just a year after the first Mothman sightings, the bridge, which spanned the Ohio River, suddenly gave way during rush hour traffic, plunging 46 people to their deaths. Many locals believed the Mothman has somehow been a harbinger of this disaster. Witnesses claim to have seen a creature in the area leading up to the collapse. Some even reported seeing the Mothman perched on the bridge before it fell. The timing of the sightings and the catastrophe led to widespread speculation that the creature's presence was not coincidental. In local folklore, the Mothman became tied to death, destruction, and impending doom. His glowing red eyes seemed to promise that something terrible would happen. Another dark chapter in the Mothman myth involves the so-called Men in Black, mysterious, government-like figures who allegedly appeared in Point Pleasant shortly after the Mothman sightings began. These men were described as wearing black suits and acting in strange and unsettling ways, often intimidating witnesses into silence about their experiences. Their sudden appearance fueled conspiracy theories, with some suggesting that the Men in Black were part of a cover-up trying to suppress information about the creature and any potential paranormal phenomena associated with it. Many Mothman witnesses also reported seeing unusual lights in the sky, leading to a connection between the creature and unidentified flying objects. The idea that the Mothman may have been an extraterrestrial being or the result of some otherworldly experiment gained traction. Some suggested that the Mothman was some sort of alien scout, an omen sent to observe humanity before a more significant, more cataclysmic event, or even that the creature was a manifestation of the UFO phenomenon. In this interpretation, the Mothman was not merely a harbinger of doom, but a part of a more extensive cosmic web of mysteries and unsettling events. Some theorists have even posited that the Mothman may have been a time-traveling entity or a being from a parallel dimension, crossing over to our world and warning us of an impending catastrophe. The Curse of Point Pleasant. Over the years, Point Pleasant has become synonymous with the Mothman. Once a quiet, rural community, the town became a hub of paranormal activity, attracting cryptid enthusiasts, researchers, and thrill seekers. The Mothman sightings waned after the Silver Bridge collapse, but the creature's presence left an indelible mark on the town's identity. Many locals still believe that the Mothman has some supernatural connections to the town's fate, with some going as far as to claim that the creature continues to linger, watching from the shadows. In 2002, a monument to the Mothman was erected in Point Pleasant, cementing the creature's place in the town's dark history. Despite this, a sense of unease still permeates the area, and locals have often expressed a fear that the Mothman may one day return, heralding another disaster. The Mothman is a terrifying cryptid and a rich symbol in modern myth. In many ways, the creature embodies humanity's fear of the unknown and the relentless march of fate. The Mothman is often interpreted as a manifestation of impending disaster, an otherworldly messenger warning us of our collective doom. His unsettling appearance, the cryptic nature of his warnings, and the inexplicable presence makes him an enduring symbol of the dark unknown. Moreover, the Mothman myth taps into the human fear of being watched, of having our lives controlled by some unseen forces. The glowing red eyes that stare into the soul have come to represent the idea that there is something far greater and more malevolent than we can comprehend, always lurking in the periphery. While many view the Mothman as a supernatural or extraterrestrial entity, others offer more grounded explanations. Some believe that the creature is a previously undiscovered species, perhaps a large owl or crane misidentified in the heat of fear. However, this does little to explain the eerie circumstances and the strange occurrences tied to the sightings. Others speculate that the Mothman can manifest a collective psychological phenomenon, a sort of mass hysteria triggered by the fear of the unknown, especially in the wake of the Silver Bridge disaster. Still, the most persistent theory surrounding the Mothman is that of the Harbinger. Whether alien, supernatural, or something else entirely, the creature is thought to be a warning, a sign of impending doom or catastrophic event. The myth's persistent grip on popular culture is fueled by its mystery, its association with tragic events, and the lingering question of what the Mothman truly represents. The Mothman is more than just a cryptid. It is a harbinger, a symbol of fear, and a mystery that continues to haunt the folklore of Point Pleasant and beyond. Its eerie presence, glowing red eyes, and ominous association with tragedy have made it an enduring figure in paranormal lore. Whether one believes in the supernatural aspects of the creature or sees it as a dark legend born from real-world events, the Mothman remains one of the most chilling cryptids in modern mythology, forever a specter of impending doom. Unicorns are often seen as a symbol of purity, grace, and beauty in most Western cultures, but they have a deeper, darker side in mythology and folklore. The unicorn's history is filled with contradictions, blending themes of innocence with violence, healing with danger, and light with darkness. While much of the modern conception of the unicorn has been sanitized into a gentle, magical creature, earlier myths and legends painted a more complex, sometimes unsettling picture. The unicorn's blood. In some ancient texts, particularly in medieval Europe, it was believed that the blood of a unicorn had miraculous healing properties. However, this blood was also considered extremely dangerous. A potion made from the blood could cure any disease, but it also had the potential to drive people insane or kill them if not prepared correctly. The idea that something so pure could also hold such power and danger plays into the duality of the unicorn and darker mythologies. The dark unicorn, wild and uncontrollable. Some earlier accounts describe unicorns as not peaceful but untamable and violent creatures. In ancient Persian and Indian mythology, unicorns were seen as powerful, wild beasts, creatures of chaos that could be revered and feared. In Persian art, the unicorn often appears alongside lions, symbolizing strength and aggression. These creatures were so powerful that they could wreak havoc on entire cities or forces of invaders, signaling a more dangerous aspect of their nature. In the Middle Ages, unicorns were often depicted as ferocious beings that a virgin could only tame. The idea of a virgin, usually symbolizing purity and innocence, was said to act as a mediator between man and the wild forces of the unicorn, which could otherwise destroy anyone who tried to approach it. However, not all virgin taming stories were about the triumph of goodness. The notion of a virginal sacrifice, often portrayed as the unicorn's violent death, was part of a troubling motif that suggests that the price of purity might be destruction or sacrifice. The unicorn and death. The concept of unicorns being linked to death can be found in several darker mythological traditions. The Celtic folklore, unicorns were believed to be omens of death. A unicorn's sudden appearance in the woods or near a village was often seen as a prelude to a disaster or death. In some stories, a unicorn would appear just before the death of a great leader or warrior, and his presence would mark the end of an era. This connection between a unicorn and death also appears in Christian symbolism. Early medieval bestiaries, illustrated books about animals, often depicted a unicorn as a Christ-like figure symbolizing purity and innocence. However, these bestiaries also suggested that the unicorn was bound to be sacrificed in the end, as it was always captured and killed by hunters. This idea echoes the death of Christ, innocence being sacrificed to save humanity. A unicorn's horn, a dangerous weapon. The horn of the unicorn, a central feature in this mythos, was revered and feared. In earlier European tales, the horn was not just a symbol of purity, but also a powerful weapon. The unicorn's horn, known as the alicorn, was believed to be able to neutralize poisons and act as a protective talisman. Still, it was also associated with a violent and unpredictable force. It could pierce the hearts of attackers or bring down entire armies if wielded as a weapon. In many tales, the unicorn's horn is coveted by kings and warriors who see it as the ultimate prize. However, the hunters of unicorns were often depicted as tragic figures. They would pursue these rare creatures not only for the horns, but also to possess their power, which would, in turn, often lead to their demise. The alicorn's power could not be taken lightly or controlled, and attempting to harness it often led to dark consequences. The unicorn and the wild hunt. In some European traditions, the unicorn was associated with the wild hunt, a mythic procession of spectral riders, often led by a god or a deathbringer figure. The wild hunt was a supernatural event where the dead or souls of the restless were hunted through the night skies, often bringing chaos and doom. The unicorn, a creature of the forest and wild places, was said to be hunted by these ghostly riders, further tying the unicorn to death, destruction, and the uncontrollable forces of nature. In some versions of the wild hunt, the unicorn is not just a passive victim, but an active participant, a creature transformed or corrupted by the chaos surrounding it. This version reflects a more tragic, darker view of the unicorn, once a symbol of purity, now caught in a cycle of violence and death. The unicorn in Dark Ages and Renaissance. During the Renaissance, the unicorn was still viewed as a creature of mystery and power, but its symbolism began to change. It was no longer just a creature to be hunted for its horn or its blood. It became a symbol of untamed wilderness and a struggle between civilization and nature. However, even during this period, the unicorn retained a connection to the darker elements of the human psyche. In the 16th century, the unicorn became a popular emblem of the Virgin Mary in Christian art. but it was often depicted as a creature that was both pure and doomed. The iconic image of the unicorn impaled by a hunter's spear, representing Christ's sacrifice, appears in religious and secular works of art, where the unicorn's tragic death is a constant theme. The unicorn as a harbinger of the apocalypse. In some apocalyptic traditions, the unicorn appears as a harbinger of the end of times. This was particularly prominent in 16th century European eschatology, where the unicorn was thought to be a creature that would appear in the final days of the world. In these stories, the unicorn's death will mark the onset of a cosmic upheaval where the boundaries between life and death, good and evil, would be shattered. The unicorn's symbolism in these apocalyptic tales often suggested the triumph of the forces of chaos and destruction rather than salvation. In these darker stories and interpretations, the unicorn becomes more than just a beautiful, elusive creature. It symbolizes dangerous power, untamable nature, and the fragility of purity in a world fraught with violence and death. The unicorn's mythos reflects the human fascination with beauty, innocence, and the darker forces that seek to destroy them. That concludes this lore. If you like what you heard, please like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next lore. Bye.